And diagonally too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're going not east to west only, but north to south as well. So,
yeah.
But I mean, with the endorsement that many people have given them, I certainly look for the opportunity to try more what they're doing, because I feel like it's going to be eye opening in that way that new to me products always are. Like, oh my God, I didn't believe somebody was doing that. I could only imagine that was actually the way that was going to work. So, but I feel like with the fruit hydromels, especially things like raspberry, you can get a massive amount of enjoyment out of a tart, sour raspberry hydromel. It sounds like what all the sour beer people love in a non-beer beverage. Yeah. So. And
for those of the people out there going, wait, what? Hydromel? What the hell is he talking about? That we were talking about session meads. Hydromel, session mead, same thing. Different vernacular depending on where you started and what country you live in. So, we called them hydromels when I got started. There was no such thing as a session mead as a term, but hydromels have always been out there. So session mead is more of a U.S. vernacular at this point.
Yeah, and I think I vacillate between sparkling hydromel and session mead to sort of be synonymous, but a session mead certainly doesn't have to be sparkling. So there, I can get myself into a little trouble then. What if I don't specify sparkling? Because people assume it's not, but it can't be. Doesn't really matter. It's more of a personal preference thing. So what else? What other questions can we drill into?
I don't know. Did we hit on all the stuff that we had on our list, AJ?
I
think we did. All right.
One of the things I was wondering is the whole body mouthfeel thing. Can that be addressed with choosing the right yeast?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I won't claim to have enough experience to be super helpful in directing people to specific yeast strains that would or wouldn't. But what I would say is go check out the yeast charts and the data sheets on different yeasts, and look for ones that talk about glycerin production or ability to bind with natural forming substances that create body, because there are a number. I think more on the white wine side of the house, just from my recollection of having researched those from time to time, you will find ones that outright call out their ability to create elements of body and texture. Those will definitely have an impact if you think about the lightness of the beverage that you're finishing with. Any addition of body or texture that they can create should be perceptible in the finished product.
Okay, yeah, just because I haven't really done a lot of experimentation with different yeasts, especially in controlled things, so for me it's really difficult to pick out exactly what any one yeast is going to contribute to something.
Yeah, so I'm looking, I don't know where I got this. I think I must have gotten it from Winemaker Magazine, and I'm just looking to see if they call out... Oh yeah, so for example, I just found this one, White Labs, their liquid yeast, WLP 735, it's a French white wine yeast, gives it enhanced creamy texture. So that would be an example of the type of thing, if you were looking for that in a yeast you were going to select, that might be an attractive component, because that creaminess, if you were doing something, say you were doing a grape hydromel, maybe you put some Chardonnay grapes in there and maybe some, Muscat or something like that, and that yeast built the body up, that would certainly be a much more complex result. I'm trying to see if I have another yeast chart kicking around. I thought I had another
everywhere,
one. Yep. Here's the one from Lalamon. I'm just looking to see if it has... I don't actually think it has... doesn't have anything about texture in it. But yeah, that would be my recommendation is if people are looking for that, take a look at the yeast vendors' data sheets on them, and look for ones that specifically call out textural components. Certainly if it calls it out only for certain varieties of grape, perhaps, obviously if you're not using that in your mead, you might not get the same effect. But any of those that call out those capabilities, I would expect you'd have a perceptible benefit.
Okay.
So one of the things that didn't talk too much about was why session meads.
Yeah.
Why
that's
are we doing it? I'll tell you why it's on my mind. Is I don't feel like the restaurant experience or the pub or bar experience for strong and sweet meads is necessarily going to grow as quickly as the industry is growing. And I do feel like once the industry grows more, that's an outlet where people want to put their product. And I feel like some restaurants, will certainly help to feature it, especially if it's local, and look to figure out how to do, a mead pairing dinner, that sort of thing. But I hear a lot of people say, I just don't know about buying, strong and sweet mead by the glass. What does it go with? Do you drink it with the meal? Well, it depends. It depends on what you're eating. A strong and sweet mead doesn't necessarily work with all kinds of dishes. It works with some, but not with others.
Yeah.
And then, so I get to thinking, okay, well, what do people want to drink? Well, they want to drink wine, beer, cider.
I always ask for cider when I go everywhere I go, because I like beer, but I'm not a huge beer person, and I like wine, but I'm not a huge wine person, really. And the wines I like don't generally go good with meals anymore. Anyway, I tend to go. I don't drink a lot of super dry wines. So, and
Strawberry Boone's Farm doesn't go with steak, really?
Yeah, yes, it does. Strawberry Boone's Farm goes with everything. What are you talking about? Oh my god!
After a couple bottles of it, it certainly goes with everything.
Nobody cares. That's right, including the projectile vomiting that comes at the end.
Absolutely.
Third of the bottle in with the pork roast.
Yeah. But,
it's the right thing to drink with it.
Well, I like wines with a little bit more residual sugar, and generally speaking, that's something that you're going to have more with appetizers and or dessert, or as a follow up. I'm a huge fan of ports and sherries, so. But so I tend to go for ciders because I can get a nice off dry cider that is going to pair with damn near everything,
And I also think that the other thing that you may be selecting there, but I know other people are too, is it's got less alcohol in it.
Well, yeah, and yes, I do that because I prefer that way. I find that my alcohol tolerance is not what it was when I was in my 20s, not surprising. And that also it's really easy for me to end up getting a headache or something if it's not, a really clean ferment. So, I'd rather have 2 ciders and 1 glass of wine.
Yep. So that's where I've gotten to thinking about it. Is just it seems to me like it offers more tools for people to use it at the restaurant table. I'm by no means saying, and again, if my peers in the industry, soon to be peers in the industry, are listening, I am not cutting anything down. I'm not suggesting that strong sweet mead has no place in bars and restaurants. It most certainly does.
Yeah.
Yep. From my head, though, it seems to me like there's additional versatility of this particular style of mead in not just sitting with food, but just the pub experience in general. If people want a beer and a cider, and now you've got something to drink, and you're not drinking twice as much alcohol as them, well, they're not carrying you home, and you can try more than one thing. There's a lot there, and then price point.
Yeah.
I think it's much more competitive. I think people would turn to it more often than they turn to mead now when they realize they're getting it in the same form. They're getting the beer and the cider, and they're paying about the same price for it.
Mm-hmm.
I just think the uptick in potential accessibility and people choosing that, I think it's going to be a way for the industry to continue to grow, and that's what I'm seeing. I mean, I know Mid-Atlantic here on the East Coast, there's a number of meaderies that are doing primarily session mead or sparkling mead because of the versatility that they believe that it offers in whatever the consumption avenue.
There's that. It's an easy drinker. That's a huge thing. And then, of course, from a commercial standpoint, the other thing is fast. It's really fast to make a session mead. You're not waiting 30 or 60 days or however long to push that thing through a ferment and then get it out to market. And for a new meadery, that can make or break them, depending on their cash position. So,
Yep.
A session mead is if you can make a good session mead, and that's the key there, it's got to be a good one, then, you can get your stuff to market quicker and turn it over quicker so that you can make more mead.
Yep. I think the other appeal for me for the session meads is thinking about the tasting room. I love some of the craft breweries in my area because there's generally never the same lineup when you go in, and that can be a matter of just days or weeks between visits, and there's something different on tap. And I think that you can really only do that. I'm not saying have broad variety every time. I'm saying having turnover at the taps, meaning something you had 2 weeks ago you're not having again for 2 weeks because you've got something different to put on. I think that variety causes a certain amount of excitement in the tasting room for people to come in and create that repeat business. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's I want people to come in and be like, oh, this is neat. It's mead. It's on tap, and it's kind of the same as the breweries around here. They only have something on for a couple of weeks, and they put something different on, and then that other thing comes back, or yet something different. I think there's a certain appeal for me in thinking that I'm going to be on the other side of the counter in the tasting room. Mm-hmm. Being able to use that as a tool to get people excited about what we're doing.
Yeah.
Keeps them coming back, too.
Yeah.
It does, not just for the new stuff, but and this happened the last time I went to St. Ambrose. What do you mean you're out of the lemon stuff? I liked that. It was like they had a lemon session mead that was just to die for, and it was awesome. Perfect summer drink, just perfect. And I was like, wait, but you're out? Why are you out? And he's like, well, we just blew through it, so now we've got this. Well, okay, I'll drink that, but I want the lemon stuff next time. So, you've got that anticipatory, that you could bring that thing back, at a later point in time when you've already blown through the 3 kegs that you made when you did the last batch.
I mean, it almost gives you the ability to have scarcity in both of your product lines.
It really does.
Yeah.
Without ever actually setting out to do that, but it just works out that way.
Right. Yeah, and I think it also gives you the ability to focus on seasonality as well. Some of your session mead varieties will ultimately work well in one or some of the seasons, but not all. And you get into that stride, and then you have a sense that, okay, some of this stuff is going to rotate, but it's not going to start to rotate until it's really in season based on people's buying patterns to it. So then you actually end up with that seasonal menu that you've got rotation within every, say, 3-month or 6-month block, but then you have stuff that rotates out and you don't see it again for 6 months.
Yeah. Because
it's just not the thing that everybody wants. Like, we made a squash cider this fall.
Interesting.
I have a sense that that's going to taste good in the spring for everybody here, but I'm betting most people would tell you that it probably tastes best in the fall.
Yeah.
Well, yes, because that's when everybody's drinking their pumpkin lattes, right?
That's right.
Correct. Exactly. So, no, I have to make it in the fall, which means you're going to be drinking it in the wintertime, or at least the late fall. But, again, so we get that, and I think the session mead line with the quick turnover gives you the ability to experiment the way I've suggested that I'm making them, gives you the ability to ferment the big batch, fraction it down into smaller batches, treat each of the smaller batches separately, and that gives you experimentation possibility every time you make a batch.
Yeah.
I think also the fact that, you say hydromel to me, and the first 2 things that come to mind to me are quick and clean. And the fact that you can do a quick ferment means that you can actually have your seasonal stuff happen when your fruit's still in season.
Yep.
And that's kind of important because, you want to have your strawberry whatever when strawberries are in season. You want to have your apple stuff in, late summer, early fall when the apples are in season because that's when you want it. You want to have your squash stuff around Thanksgiving because that's when everybody wants their pumpkin stuff, Yeah. And the fact that you don't have to, it's nice to do that with a traditional meat or something, but if you have to age it for even 3 or 6 months before you put it out on the shelves, then you're missing out on the timing for that. And I think that's really one of the advantages of being able to do these nice, quick, clean session meads, and you can still get it out on the out in the tasting room while people are still thinking about whatever it was that was in season.